Jesse, cue it up. Everybody in their places. It's time to go.
Are we rolling? Yeah, we're rolling. Okay, let's get it done, everybody. Let's go.
Hey, Regan, how's my hair? Is it okay?
Poxy, they can't see you.
All right, come on, let's go. It's toots, people. Poxy, start on page 4. Get the lines right this time.
All right, I got it this time, I swear.
4, 3.
Come on. It's time for the Ghost of Hollywood.
Well, hello, wall crawlers, and welcome to the 28th episode of The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Reagan, and it's good to be back here in the studio for another great interview tonight.
Our guest tonight, legendary actor Stuart Pankin, is well known for an arsenal of roles in movies such as Fatal Attraction, Arachnophobia, and Life Stinks, to name a few of the many we will discuss today, and his work in television as a screen and voice actor, most notably of Earl Sinclair on the infamous television show Dinosaurs.
Yeah, you know, I had to call my mom and tell her about this one.
Why did you call your mom?
Because I had to tell her I was gonna meet Earl the dinosaur.
I bet she was so proud.
Yeah. She told me to send her a photo so she could put it in my baby book.
You have a baby book?
Yep, sure do. And like my mom puts everything in it, no kidding. Like she even saved a t-shirt I was wearing when I won my first fist fight.
For what?
Well, it's kind of an important memory for an Irish-American family, Ray.
Anyway, back to Stuart. There's so much to go over here. His filmography is... well, he's done a lot of work.
Yeah, you're not kidding. And, I mean, that aside, I'm not really worried because we're all geared up, you know? We got all the questions on deck. We're ready to go. We've seen the movies and, Stuart Pankin, let's do this.
Well, I was listening to some of his other interviews, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna mess with you.
Well, I can handle it. I'm not scared. You gotta take a few swings from the greats. If I'm gonna be like Johnny one day, this is how I get my chops.
Oh, here we go with the Johnny thing again.
Kiss my ass, Reagan. I don't care what you say. I was born to be a star.
You're like a dollar store Dr. Demento.
Oh, I can live with that, Dr. Demento is a total badass. But enough of that. Let me stay focused here.
That'll be the day.
My doctor said it wouldn't be long now.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies.
Ooh, nice skills, nice singing skills.
No, I apologize for that.
Yeah, I hear you. Anyway, you're listening to The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with the corpse of Joan Rivers.
Oh, no, you didn't.
Oh, yes, I did.
When we return, I'll be here with our guest Stuart Pankin, who I'm going to offer money to help me bury Poxy behind the studio.
Sounds fair. Stay tuned, everybody, because when we come back, actor Stuart Pankin will join us on the show to discuss his work in front of the cameras and on the stage.
Stay tuned, because you're listening to The Ghost of Hollywood. Have you ever wondered what happened behind the scenes on your favorite films or television shows? Want the inside scoops from the actors, directors, and cinematographers who worked on them?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for interviews with past, present, and future filmmakers from fan-favorite movies and TV shows such as Hellraiser, Die Hard, and The Offer.
Listen in as host Poxy Leonard and Miss Reagan interview actress and producer Jamie Brewer, well known for her role as Addie Langdon in the FX original series American Horror Story.
More interested in how movies get made? Check out our interview with casting director Jackie Birch, whose work with John Hughes on 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Weird Science catapulted stars such as Judd Nelson to international fame.
The Ghost of Hollywood takes you on set as we discuss the best of cult classic cinema, nostalgic television shows, and blockbuster hits with the actors, directors, and screenwriters who worked on them.
Catch the latest episode of The Ghost of Hollywood wherever you get your podcast.
And while you're at it, don't forget to visit our website and sign up for our monthly newsletter for all the latest updates and episodes at theghostofhollywood.com.
Welcome back to The Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Ms. Reagan, and tonight we're excited to welcome our guest, Stuart Pankin. Well known throughout the industry as a prolific comedic character actor, Stuart began his career studying theater, obtaining his master in theater arts at Columbia before eventually finding his way to Broadway by the early 1970s. In the early 1980s, Stuart would begin his tenure as the infamous Bob Charles on the sketch comedy show Not Necessarily the News. This role coincided with various others in movies such as Fatal Attraction, The Dirt Bike Kid, and Love at Stake, to name just a few. In the 1990s, Stuart would begin his 4-season run as the voice of Earl Sinclair on the well-known show Dinosaurs. He would also star in Arachnophobia, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, the Xenon series, Life Stinks, and many more. In recent years, Stuart has performed various roles on television and in short films. All of that said, and it's quite a bit per usual, Stuart, thank you for joining us on the show this evening. Welcome to The Ghost of Hollywood. How are you?
I'm great, but the implication is when you say ghost of life, you're not saying that I'm dead and gone. I mean, there's still life in me.
No,
You know.
no, I'm not. And you know what's funny is that happens sometimes. Like I feel like we try and get guests, and they're like, "Is this? Are they saying I'm on the back nine here or something?" We're like, "No, the story actually comes. It's named after like a nightclub where my parents met in Roanoke, Virginia, in probably the mid 1980s.
How'd you say that word? Roanoke?
Roanoke, yeah, Roanoke, Virginia.
Roanoke.
Yeah.
I like that. Roanoke.
Yeah, it's about I don't know, like 2 hours outside of Richmond.
I don't care.
All right, fine. Anyway, go ahead, Ray. You ready?
All right, so you were given advice as an undergrad that being an English major had the strongest correlation to furthering your acting pursuits. And I could see how literary comprehension of material could lend itself to understanding the motivations of a character. But did you find that this advice was beneficial prior to pursuing your master's in theater arts?
I don't even understand the question. Yes, I understand the question. I have a degree in theater. I was an English major because the Dickinson College, where I was an undergraduate, didn't have a drama major. And my friend Bernie, who was deeply involved in the drama department, said there were 5 classes in the drama department. I took 4, and my dear friend and director, Dave Brubaker, said I didn't have to take the acting class because I acted a lot in his plays. But Bernie said that English was the correct major for a theater major. Whether he was right or not, who knows? It was fine for me, considering I went on to Columbia to get a degree, a master's degree in theater. Did it help? What's your question? Did it help me before?
Did you find that it was beneficial prior to pursuing your master's in theater arts?
Not necessarily beneficial. It was just beneficial in life to have read the classics and poetry and books, all of which I've forgotten now. But it didn't. Acting helps acting, and the studies that I took at Columbia in theater were useful. An English major beneficial prior to editing? No, not necessarily. It was just part of the liberal arts education. If there was or were, I'm an English major. If there were a theater major in Dickinson, I might have taken it. I started out as a psychology major because I enjoyed psychology in high school. And then I realized that when I walked across the lonely, dark campus to audition for the first show at Dickinson, I knew I was hooked. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I did it. And English helped me, but acting and Dave Brubaker, again, my friend, my teacher, my director, he was tremendously influential, more than English, to keep me in theater.
Now, did your relationship with Dave Brubaker, did this deal with you going to work as an understudy for the theater production for War of the Roses in '68? And did this take place while you were still studying it for your master's at Columbia?
No. I had long graduated from Dickinson. I was at Columbia working for my master's degree in Columbia, and the Wars of the Roses. I was a spear carrier, literally carrying spears, huge 10-foot, 8-foot spears, and understudying some of the principals, which was nerve-wracking because there was nobody that's listening to this will. So I won't even bother telling you the names, but these were big New York classical and legit actors.
Well, in previous interviews, you had mentioned people like Sam Waterston or Margaret Hamilton in Three Sisters. One of the
Sam Waterston was in the Shakespeare Festival. Margaret Hamilton was in the Three Sisters at the Brooklyn Academy of Music. There's so many wonderful people I work with, none of whom help me or write or call anymore.
Well, what led to you performing on Broadway in 1971?
Well, you're talking about Lincoln Center. I think I was still at Columbia, 71. Yeah. 68, 9, 79. Maybe I just graduated. And the call went out, I guess, for an audition. And I went down. I remember very clearly auditioning for a year at Lincoln Center as a journeyman, which meant that you played small parts, you understudied big parts, and you took a class. They offered a class. Some guy, I don't know his name, and I don't remember the class because it wasn't that great. But that was sort of independent of the Shakespeare Festival or anything else. I just auditioned for it and was thrilled to get it. It was a year's work for a kid who just out of school, and it was again, great people. I don't remember the names, but terrific shows, good directors. And it was a year of learning and fun.
Now, you've also performed in over 70 plus off-Broadway productions. Of these, which did you find the most memorable and or challenging to work on or develop? And farthering that, what skills aside from acting do you contribute to your work on these projects?
That's a biggie. Well, first of all, it's 70, not 70 off-Broadway, 70 regional and off-Broadway productions.
Okay.
I in the early 70s, middle 70s, no, early 70s, my wife went to Seton Hill College in Pennsylvania, and their brother's school was St. Vincent. St. Vincent had a summer theater, which started out as a non-equity theater and then became an equity theater. And my father just died, and Joy, my future wife, brought me up, and I got in that company. That's where I've done most of the stuff that's you say is memorable. I mean, there's nothing, I mean, we'll talk about it later maybe, but working on the stage it doesn't compare to working on film and television in some respects, in most respects. The theatrical literature, drama for the stage is very rich, very deep, and you learn a lot. It throws a lot of challenges up in your way, and that's where you learn a lot. Again, throwing out wonderful names of wonderful friends, Joe Riley and Father Tom Devereaux, producer director, who became lifelong friends, gave me some great parts that perhaps I wouldn't have gotten cast in the real world. Well, that is the real, but in New York or maybe regional theaters, I would have been cast in that. But I got to do some terrific parts. And as far as what was the question? Challenging? What was the challenging question?
Well, like
look at those notes.
No, I mean it was as far as like basically the skills that because you have a lot of interest in theaters or in entertainment outside of just acting. So it was what sort of skills at that time when you were younger working on these productions or even throughout the years?
Well, everything. When you act, you bring everything you can. Whatever you have your voice, you have your movement. I was very good for a heavy guy. I was a really good physical comedian, and I used that as much as I could in the plays and in California and in television. Your voice, you change voices, you modulate your voice and for different characters. Just doing different characters, looking at the script, because that's where you get the information, and seeing if a guy's, an authoritarian figure or if he's meek and mild. And, you adjust your skills to that. And those are the skills that you learn. Every play that you do gives you more information for the next play. So hopefully you get better and better. And it's not necessarily that you get better, but you get certainly more efficient. And if you're lucky, you get better.
So you've been quoted as saying, most of the stuff that I've done that I've been most proud of has been on stage, and that theater material is usually denser, richer, and more complicated than Hollywood scripts tend to be. So do you think that the depth of a story and character development in theater is what inspired your best work as an actor? Well,
I started in theater. Like I said before, the material in dramatic literature for the stage is usually deeper, and you got to work at it. That's why we have rehearsals. In television and even movies, unless you're really lucky, television is quick. They write it quick, one a week, whatever they do for the series, and they cast characters, and for better or for worse, the characters that you cast in when you first get there is the character that you stay. I played a lot of comedy characters, a lot of authoritarian characters, because I've done it before. And you don't have to work so hard on that. I mean, but in theater, every play is for the most part different. And if you're lucky in television, you'll get, some chances to exercise or stretch your instrument, as we used to say as kids. But for the most part, television is pretty, you come in, you run through it, you shoot the scene, you say goodbye to everybody, and you go home. In theater, you rehearse for weeks if you're lucky, and the difference is it's significant. The difference between what you have to do for theater and what you have to do for television. Now, movies are different. There are movies that actors get a chance to work. Months, sometimes years. They have pre-production. I remember I did a movie called Second Sight with Bronson Pinchot and John Larroquette. And we rehearsed about a week or two. That was unusual for me because in television you come in, you get the part, and you do it. And that's why they cast. That's why they call it typecasting, because if they want a short gay guy, they're going to cast a short gay guy. If they want a big rough guy, they're going to cast a big rough guy. So you get, I'm going to say stuck, but you don't get stuck because every job you get is, considering the unemployment in SAG-AFTRA is 95%. And of that 5%, only 2% make a living.
Is it really unemployment in SAG-AFTRA? I'm sorry to interrupt you. It's really at 95%?
Yeah, it certainly was the last time I looked. And like I said, 2%, only 2% of that, it might have changed, and make a living wage. I mean, that's why a lot of actors, you have to do secondary jobs. You got to be waiters or, you pump gas, whatever it is. So every job you get in California is a bonus. It's icing. It makes you happy. The whole joke in California is the orgasm comes when you get the job, and then the aftermath is when you do the job.
Yeah, it's exciting for a minute, and then the panic button hits again. With now you mentioned in previous interviews, and I wanted to ask this briefly since you brought it up, with television acting. Now you've had reoccurring roles as a television actor, but you've mentioned in one-off experience as a television actor, kind of being like you're a stranger when you come onto the show, or it's a different experience for being, working in career on one program. Can you explain your approach to that when you begin to get used to it?
Well, you have to know when you have a guest spot and you're in there for, let's say, a day, maybe 2 days. You got to come in. You're a stranger. You are a stranger. If the people on the show are nice people, they'll interact with you and engage with you. But they got their own stuff to do. They got their own lines and their own characters to worry about. So you sort of, I find that keeping my mouth shut and doing my job as best I can is the best way to be successful in that one-off situation. Recurring roles is different. I mean, if they bring you back a couple of times, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 8, I've done 8 or 9 recurring times on a show.
Yes.
Then your character sort of sinks in, so you don't have to work so hard. And you also know the cast, you know the crew, and you can, and if you're lucky, you become friends with some of them. So it's a much easier. I'll say pleasant experience than being in a one-off. So recurring characters are, to me, terrific.
All right, now let's talk about that. Now, in the early to mid 70s, you were in New York City working in theater when at some point you heard about a need for a quote-unquote funny guy. So your agent at the time submitted your name to audition. This ultimately led to your role as Stuff in San Pedro Beach Bums. Now, you've mentioned in previous interviews that the agent you had during this time really didn't know anything about negotiating your contract for a Hollywood production. Were there any significant issues that came about as a result of this?
Well, yeah. I came in and I got the job of Stuff in San Pedro Beach Bums, Aaron Spelling's first and last attempt at hour-long comedy. And the money that the guy in New York, who had very little experience with California money, first of all, the salary that he got me was more than I'd ever made in California.
All right.
But later, Aaron Spelling called. Let's say I got $1,000 a week.
Okay.
I don't remember. Aaron Spelling called my agent, or me, probably the agent, and he said, "We're going to give Stuart $2,000 a week, $2,500 a week, whatever," out of the blue. And I said, wow. And the reason I believe he did that is because if I got on the set and I worked around other California actors that were being paid through California scale, and I saw how little I was getting, they don't realize how much of a sheep I am. I wouldn't have said anything. But they thought that I would be extremely upset if I was getting so much less than, say, the star or other California actors on the show. So Spelling actually gave me a raise, sight unseen, simply because that agent in New York didn't really understand where the bucks were in California. So that was a significant example and very interesting for me. And then we got to the set, and everybody liked each other. We never talked about money, and And it was fine, but that was the significant for me, besides just getting the role. See, in New York, you didn't need to sign with an agent, so any agent could submit you for a job, and this guy got there first. And that's why that happened. He was a New York agent and used to just dealing with New York plays.
So basically, that's when you kind of started to figure out the game of a California salary for an actor in Hollywood.
Well, yeah, and also I got an agent after the San Pedro Beach Bums, and he knew. He was a California guy, so he was much more aware of the range of money that the producers were willing to spend. So I just left it in his hands. I never said, that's not enough. I didn't care at that time. I actually still don't, unless you have a few dollars. Do you have that 20 you owe me?
Yeah, that's true. Hang on. Why? He's leaving. Can I need some money?
I don't have money. Barely make anything off this.
All right. Shit, man. I know these fucking debts piling
we're the
up.
same.
All right, well, do you know why the decision was made to develop a feature-length pilot for San Pedro Beach Bums?
Well, I don't think I knew that until you said it.
Well, the feature's a longer one, isn't it?
Yeah, what do you sneak into my office? I don't. I heard that the last episode of the San Pedro Beach Bum, we did 10, and they had an 11th written, and the producers said, Duke Vincent and Aaron Spelling said it was going to be the pie fight of all time. It was just going to be some crazy wild pie fight. Never happened because the show ended. I don't think I ever heard of a feature film being developed. It might be a memory thing. I know that myself, John Mark Robinson, who played a character named Dancer on that show, and me, we got along real well as characters and as friends, and they were talking about developing a spin-off with us. That never happened. Unfortunately, the San Pedro Beach Bums aired at a time when Elvis Presley died. So, we were preempted and nobody was watching. Also, somebody said, Duke Vincent, who was the producer of the San Pedro Beach, he called the people up north, the affiliates, and said, why are people watching the show up north? And the guy said, well, the steelheads are running. And Duke said, what? He said, the steelheads are running. Well, these are steelheads. These are fish. And it's the fishing season up there when the show was running. And everybody, nobody's stuck around on Saturday or Friday night, whatever. They were out fishing. So our viewership went down. And that's one of the reasons the show didn't last.
Now, you did, you actually, did develop, or the 11th episode was developed or created, wasn't it? It just didn't air.
Yeah, it was written. I mean, I think they showed us the script, or if they didn't, they told us about it. And they were ready to go. And I think it was a surprise. I remember, I was much younger and things affect you much more deeply. The last episode, the last shot of we filmed it on the Love Boat set because they were probably trying to save some money.
Yeah.
And the director was Jack Arnold. Now, Jack Arnold, if you look him up.
You're talking like This Island Earth Jack Arnold, kind of creature from the Black Lagoon Jack Arnold.
All right, I'm embarrassed that you know more than I do. Yes, the creature from the Black Lagoon came from outer space. Jack Arnold was a huge, I won't even call him B-movie. I mean, he was a huge director in those times. And Jack directed our last episode. And I remember the last episode, the last shot, he wheeled out this table with drinks and food. And he said, everybody was so nice to me. I want to thank you for it. And before anybody got a donut to their mouth, Duke Vincent came in and says, Jack, is that the last shot? And Jack said, yeah. And Duke says to everybody, that's the last shot. Show's over. Show's been canceled. Good luck to everybody. I mean, that's the way it happened.
Oh,
and
shit.
As a kid, it was like just a punch to the stomach. Now, luckily, or not luckily, I had signed a development deal with Universal, which kept me in California for a year. They gave you a relatively small amount of money, but you couldn't do anything else for any other studio except them. You had to do a pilot for them, which I eventually did, and maybe some other things. The other things never happened. The pilot happened, and the day or the week after that development deal ended, I got a part on a show called BJ and the Bear, and I made more money on BJ and the Bear than I did for the entire year of the development deal.
Oh,
but
wow.
It was lucky for me that I signed. It gave me something to do. It made me feel, part of Hollywood. My wife and I kept our apartment in New York for years. because we didn't know what was going to happen. But yeah, that's the way that show ended. Is that it? That's the last shot? That's the last shot.
And you wound up being you wound up, it's like, now at this point, does that make you a contract player for Universal? Am I in the right ballpark kind of understanding this?
Well, in the old days, contract players, yeah. I mean, in a sense, that's true. I mean, contract players were very, as I understand it, carefully chosen, and they played small parts in various movies. I guess being under contract, Universal made me a contract player. I never really thought about that because it never came up. I mean, I didn't do, except for the pilot at the end of that year, the pilot of Car Wash. Car Wash was a movie, and we did a pilot. Bill Dana, Arnie Sultan wrote it. I didn't do anything, and I was on unemployment. You could do that in those days. And but yeah, I guess you're right. I was a contract player. I'm going to say that I was a Hollywood contract player.
All right, so I'm gonna
me and Jimmy Stewart and me and some of those other people. Yeah.
Oh shit! You was with Jimmy Stewart.
No, I was with Jimmy Stewart. Yeah.
I saw that. That's back when he was flying around. What's that interview on Carson? Deviate for a minute. Where Jimmy Stewart talks about how when he's a contract player and they jump in, and the studio jumps his ass about wanting to fly a plane at the time, but he ended up working his way around to being able to do it. Now,
he was a general in the Air Force.
Oh, if we're getting back on topic now, in previous interviews...
Fine, Roxy. We're
fine. We were just going to talk about Jimmy Stewart.
But
no, we're not.
And now you've been directed by Jack Arnold.
I don't... What?
I mean, being directed by Jack Arnold. He done Gilligan's Island and stuff on television, too. So he had some extensive television directing experience.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. And Jimmy Stewart's one of the few actors, I think 3, that actually waited in line at a function to just shake his hand and say, I've loved him. It's a Wonderful Life. Started filming on the day I was born. Oh, wow. So I've had some sort of connection to him, and he's been one of my favorite, if not my favorite, old Hollywood actors. But enough about Jimmy Stewart. Let's get back to me.
All right.
So in previous interviews, you've mentioned feeling validated as an actor during your early career working on San Pedro Beach Bums after reworking scripts to make them funnier. What are some other significant instances during your career where you've reworked or rewritten material to make it more entertaining?
That's an interesting question. Yes. In New York, I don't rewrite plays, even though we've done some original plays. I mean, I might futz with a line or two in an original play. When I got to California, I read the scripts and I just said to myself, this can be better, and so I rewrote it. And I don't even remember, because again, a long time ago, if I cleared it with the producers. But I rewrote it, and then some of the other guys on the show started to rewrite some of their stuff. I'm not talking about huge chunks of material. I'm talking about a line or two or a phrase or two. Yeah. We did that for a while, and one director went to Duke Vincent, the producer, and said, "These kids are rewriting the script. I mean, we always did the original. First of all, we did what was written, and then we asked for another take with our stuff." And Duke said, and I will never forget it, he said, "Look, the 1% that they might screw up because of their rewriting is not worth messing around with the 99% that they made it better." And that was validation for me as a rewriter. I was never claimed to be a writer, but as a rewriter. So that's where that started on the San Pedro Beach Bums. When I did not necessarily the news, we occasionally did that too. We tried to give them the original take, and then we did the stuff, the rewrites. And I don't know. Forgive me for patting myself on the back, because I do have arthritis and it's tough. But the writers, I get a lot of stuff saying, "Thank you for making it better. Thank you for turning straw into gold. Thank you for showing, even recently, thank you for showing me what this character can be." And that's validating. That makes me as happy as somebody saying you did a great job. But it all started with the San Pedro Beach Bums. And when it comes to even Fatal Attraction, I mean, if you look at the dinner scene of Fatal Attraction, Adrian Lyne, God bless his soul, let me have my head. I mean, and a lot of that stuff is improvised and made up on the spot. And he was enthusiastic for that to happen. I mean, that's a smart man to be able to, one, let an actor go if he trusts the actor, and he did because he fought like heck to get me on the show. And two, to know what to use and what not to use. So that's been going on in my career for a long time. And if a director or an actor or writer ever objected to my saying or doing something, I would back off. I mean, I just want to try to make it better. That's all.
Now that's interesting with Fatal Attraction. We'll talk more about it in a minute, but I do want to say.
Oh, will we? Will we?
Well, can we? Can we?
Yes.
All right, it's fine. But you got to put on the glasses. It's the only way to do it. Now, but with Jimmy's character, though, what's different about, I feel like that, and it's funny you say it's improv, because especially at the table scene where there's a lot, that's probably like the most dense scene that you're involved in with that part of the movie. And you play this character in other movies, right? So say when you're like Pritchard in, what is it? Is it Life Stinks? And then when you play Bill Paxton's boss in The Vagrant, and you've kind of got this, it's more like almost surface level and smug. But with Jimmy's character, it brings depth to that role. Like, I feel like there's a lot more charisma and involvement in that character. Did Adrian allow you to? Is that something he was looking for? Because you drive that character much more to a sincere position than you have in other films where it's a little more slapstick.
What, are you telling me that I'm superficial in my other films? Turn this off.
Oh, fine. Well, are you? No, I'm just kidding.
You're right about Pritchard and with Bill Paxton and what's the other one? Mannequin on the Movie. Those are my what's the word for somebody that's tight-assed and officious. Those, that I get cast in that a lot.
Yeah.
Jimmy was different. Adrian Lyne, God bless him. They said to him, "Well, shoot, in New York. Why don't you get somebody in New York?" Because I was doing not necessarily the news at the time, and I had to fly in once a week for a month, back and forth, once a week for a day or two to shoot my scenes in Fatal Attraction. And he, again, bless his soul, said, "I want Stuart Pankin. I want somebody that's funny and that can act." And he fought to get me in the movie. And as far as, I don't remember a lot of rewriting and improvising except for that dinner scene. I think we were I was pretty by the book in the rest of it. But it's all him. That, my part of the movie and the success of the movie is him. He was terrific. He was terrific on the set. He was creative, nice, and actually, I don't think I've ever saw it, but a friend of mine said in the Laserdisc version of Fatal Attraction, he gives me a lot of nice compliments, and someday I'm going to track that down because anybody that can give me compliments, I'll send them a box of candy.
How was it building rapport with Michael Douglas when you had to work with him? Because the two of you developed kind of a synergistic relationship. And then later, like, say, when things are falling apart for his character in the movie and you're meeting in the library and you take on more of the kind of the, oh shit, you fucked up, homie role. How does that play out as far as developing a relationship with him? Did you have to rehearse together a lot, or did you know Michael prior to that? Or
no, I didn't know Michael prior to that, but Adrian, again, very smartly sent me and Ann Archer and my wife, she'll kill me, but she's a singer now. She's a wonderful girl. They sent us out to lunch.
Okay.
So the first day that we were on the set, we went out to lunch to try to get to know each other. He's a really nice guy. He's a very giving actor. And a rapport, I don't like the concept of, they had chemistry. I don't know what that means. But, if a couple of actors have a rapport with each other and can joke and make like in that dinner scene, I mean, we were all improvising and playing off each other. And that was easy with him because he was as a star, they always say, Rick Moranis, when I did Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves, said, if you're number one on the call sheet, you have a responsibility. And I believe in that. You have a responsibility to the cast and the crew to sort of be the leader of the ship. And Michael was. And as a matter of fact, when Fatal Attraction was over, he was working on a pilot, an improv pilot with two opposing improvisational groups. And he called me in and Rhea Perlman to be the judges. So, I mean, apparently we got along because he called me in for that. He never writes, he never calls. Once he married Catherine Zeta-Jones, I was off the Rolodex.
I mean, can you blame him? You're a threat.
No.
You're a threat.
I can't. I could have made him very happy, but that's another story.
Do you still shoot do you still shoot Glenn Closo's looks if you run across her in public?
No, I actually saw Sunset Boulevard. I went backstage and reintroduced myself to her and said hello. And she was very nice. We didn't spend a lot of time together, but I enjoyed watching her. And if you can learn anything from the relationship between an actor and a director, I try. And she was nice, and everybody, everybody was great. There's very few things that I've done in Hollywood. People say in interviews, "Well, what's the dirt here? What's the dirt?" I said, I have no dirt. And if I did, I wouldn't say it, because my wife says, you be nice all the time. But it's not that hard to be nice all the time if you've been lucky enough to work with people that are nice. So there you go.
No.
Me and Glenn. We hang on, Glenn. Yeah, we're very close today. We go out to dinner all the time. And no, this is a lie. You should break in here and say, shut up.
And I'm not going to. I'm going to recut it and make it all seem real. Since we're on Fatal Attraction, we'll go ahead and get to that. With the one thing I wanted to ask about that now, did you know Adrian Lyne prior to this, and did he why did he champion you for this role? And was it hard to balance that, going back and forth, working on not necessarily the news and Fatal Attraction?
Well, I think he knew me from not necessarily news. I think that's the thing that got me on his radar. And I was younger, so physically I could do that. I could fly in one night, go to sleep, get up and do the scene, and sometimes take a red eye back. Sometimes, if you're lucky enough, you fly in, do a scene, and stay another night and do another scene. But it wasn't hard to balance it. The people are not necessarily the news. Were very, very kind, and they let me, they accommodated me. Well, to be honest with you, they're nice people again, and it could do nothing but make their cachet increase to have a guy on their show in a major motion picture.
Oh, all right. I'm putting it together now. So you got some clout. That's where we're going. Anyway,
well,
I'm just kidding.
I never said, I want a dressing room, because I was in not Fatal Attraction.
Why not?
Nobody knew. Well, because we didn't care. We used to, in the beginning of Fatal Attraction, our first makeup room was the men's room at the Shell station up in the boondocks.
Oh, shit.
So that's the truth. That's the truth. So we didn't care about that. In Fatal Attraction, nobody had dressing rooms. Nobody had trailers. It was just a great experience. And like I said, nobody knew that was going to be as successful a movie or a comic movie as it was. I'm thrilled to death that it is.
I tell you what, I think it probably made a lot of men faithful. You got to.
Well, something. That's the comment that people make about Fatal Attraction. It made a lot of men think twice before cheating. As a matter of fact, Glenn Close, or Glennie, as I like to call her. I don't call it. She tried to burn that rabbit or boil that rabbit. And in England, women like her, they call them bunny boilers. If you look at some of these English shows, and we do, some of these English procedural shows, occasionally you'll hear she's a real bunny boiler, and that's a reference to Fatal Attraction.
I mean, when we were studying your interviews, I went and immediately made the dish. So I was like, no, back.
That pan du agua.
No, say with it was funny. There's a scene. What is it in the movie when you have to say something about pâté de foie gras? I can't remember what movie it was, but it's a.
I don't remember.
Is it life sting? I can't. Anyway,
I don't remember.
Now,
incidentally, speaking about writing and letting Adrian, the first time I met Glenn Close in the scene,
yeah,
you remember? I think she likes me. She's undressing me with her eyes, and she's having double the fun. I wrote that. That's my line.
Does Joy know that? Because if Joy knows that, I'll delete it from this.
No, she knows.
Now, so obviously acting has been your main pursuit, but your ability to write and rework scripts has at times led you to work on projects such as the Cinemax Comedy Experiment. Do you remember developing this program? Because you were episode 30 for this one.
Oh yeah. Larry Hurwitz, David Hurwitz, and Larry, they were writers on the show, and. I was nominated 5 out of 6 times for a Cable Ace Award for Not the News. And the year that I wasn't, I guess the producers felt sorry for me. Said, "You want to do a Cinemax Comedy Experiment?" Now, Cinemax Comedy Experiment was really kind of a low budget thing meant for comics to go up and get a studio and get an audience in and do their bit. We decided to do a play based on. All right, this is a long story. You got some time?
Yeah, we got time.
When I was carrying a spear at the Shakespeare Festival, Richard III, as I do with a lot of stuff, write parody songs. So I wrote a bunch of songs for Richard III. And Kevin Kline, believe it or not, was also an extra in the thing. And he's a musician. He played the piano. So we used to, during breaks, sing these songs and entertain the troops. Huh. So when a comedy experiment came, I said, well, maybe let's do that. Let's do a parody of Richard III. And so so we did it. We wrote it. They wrote it. Larry Hurwitz, David Hurwitz and Larry, and I'll get his last name soon. Wonderful guy. He wrote it, so I played 5 different parts, and they played the music that I wrote. Yeah. And we cast it. It was a very low budget, but we did it in 2 days. And I had to hire people so we could shoot the back of their heads when I'm on stage as me and then as another character. Yeah, that was an incredibly tense. I mean, I remember every night going over the entire script because I had 5 characters to learn, with my wife sitting there cueing me. I mean, every night, because I didn't want to screw up because we were on such a tight budget. They brought a director in from New York that they worked with before, and we did it in 2 days. And it was, and then we went in and recorded the music. It was a terrific experience. Would I have done things differently now? Yeah, absolutely. Looking at it. But it's hard to be perfect when you have 2 days and everybody's working for scale or less. But we pulled it off, and I'm real happy about it. I mean, a lot of it I'm real proud of. Some of it I wish I could redo, but some say life's a little like that.
Do you have anything specifically you would touch on that you would redo or do differently this time?
No, it was all perfect. I lied. The whole thing is perfect.
All right, fine. I asked. I gave you the chance.
Well, I can't do it.
That's true. Woulda, shoulda, coulda, fuck it.
Yeah. We could get what do they call it when you ask for money? Gift giving. What do they call that?
I don't know. As soon as you teach me, I'm out of here to start my new job.
No, but you raise money. It's a. Come on, you kids. You're young. You know what these things are. When you ask for money to fund a funding,
like,
GoFundMe,
like crowdfunding. You're talking about like crowdfunding. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll ask for $2 million, and then we can do it. We can do this, redo it.
All right. It starts now. You listening out there, audience. Crowdfunding, you can visit us at. No.
Just send the checks to me. The hell with the project.
That's a good point. That's good. All right. Cash is preferable, though.
All right. Well, in previous interviews, you've mentioned an idea for a program called Uncle Gus, which I've read saw some development but never materialized. Why didn't it go?
No. Well, Uncle Gus, we tried 3 times we did the pilot 3 times with 3 different groups of actors. That and an animated show called Superdog and Mr. Monkey, which I really thought was going to go. And Uncle Gus was a big disappointment that it didn't go. Why things don't go, I don't know. I mean, nobody knows, why things are successful and why some things that are successful that shouldn't be successful are successful, and some things that are worthwhile never get off the ground. So it was a disappointment to me because it would have been, voiceover work is great. You can do it in your underwear, and you make a decent salary. I know a lot of voiceover guys, Rob Paulson, Maurice LaMarche. These are top of the line voiceover guys, and they've been doing it all their lives. There's a handful, maybe 2 handfuls of voiceover guys that work all the time. So maybe they wanted different people. I don't know. I mean, I thought it was great. But to answer why any show doesn't go on, San Pedro Beach Bums or, Nearly Departed or
I was going to say, I'm about to ask you about Nearly Departed's coming up.
Well, there you go. I mean, you had a show with Eric Idle and Caroline McWilliams, who became dear friend, the late beautiful Caroline McWilliams. It was a good show. It was a takeoff of not a takeoff, but it was it
was like reimagined of the film from 37, right? You talking about Topper with Cary Grant?
Well, I'm talking about Cary Grant, but also Leo G. Carroll and a bunch of people did the television series, which was very successful. So, and Eric was, he's a major star. And why that didn't go, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it could be because the Steelheads are running in Portland, Oregon. I don't have no idea why shows don't go.
Well, why did you have to make 3 pilots for Uncle Gus?
Well, they were trying to get it. I guess they liked the idea, and they tweaked it. Again, I don't remember the details. I was always Uncle Gus, but they brought in other characters around Uncle Gus to tweak it, to send it in one direction, then send it in another direction. They were trying. God bless them. They were trying. It just never worked.
Well, during your time on the game show, Super Password, you had developed a friendship with Bert Convy, who would pass away in 1991 after a brief battle with glioblastoma. Now, revisiting your time with Bert now, what can you say about your working relationship on and off of the screen that made your friendship so essential?
Well, he was a great guy. I met him on Password. And I guess we just got along. I don't know why. We went down to his house, for a party, went to the 2 houses that he lived. I think second time he might have been starting to get sick. The nice thing about Bert is he said, I want to do something with you. And he gave me the script that he wanted to develop that I would be in. I don't think I was, the lead, but we wanted to work together. And he was smart and funny and creative. And we just got along. We didn't spend a lot of time together, but whenever I saw him, I enjoyed the time. I mean, he was one of the nice guys, one of the better guys.
Now, you've also spoken highly of producer Bob Stewart, saying that you both became close friends during your time on Super Password. Is this what led to your subsequent work on $100,000 Pyramid?
Well, that's kind of backward. Bob Stewart, I met on the Pyramid.
Okay.
Through not necessarily the news. Pat Lee, who was our producer, knew the producers of Pyramid. So me and Annie Bloom, and I think Danny Breen once did a show, but we did those a bunch of times. I did a bunch of Pyramids, and I became very good friends with Bob Stewart. He became a dear friend. I mean, we went out to lunch once a week. We played poker together. We just hung out at various functions. He was a great, funny, smart guy. Died. I know he was 91, but he died too soon. He died because when I went to pick him up for lunch, he was across the street and he did a little dance for me and he fell. and he fell and he broke stuff and then he died. It was a tremendous loss, and I'm still friendly with his son Sandy Stewart. But I met Bob through Pyramid, and $25,000, $100,000 Pyramid. I mean, I did a bunch of those, and it was. There's a lot of people in this world that I've been friendly with, but Bob was such a positive element in my life, just because he was so smart, so funny, and I loved him. I really loved him.
Now, it's funny. So I watched an episode. I found one where, I guess it was when you're still doing $25,000 Pyramid, and it's the last time that somebody had won while Dick Clark was hosting, and you helped him win. You've talked about it in previous interviews that $100,000 Pyramid was an intense experience, and this kind of looked like it was an intense experience watching it. How was it? Because there was a lot of money on the line for the guest? Were you really having to figure these things out and answer the questions on the spot?
Well, yeah. I mean, or you go to jail if they give you the questions in advance. It was tense because everybody who played the show, any of the celebrities who played the show, always wanted to do the best they could for the contestants. I mean, some of this was life-changing money for some of these people.
Yeah.
So that was there. Also, the Pyramid was always, it was on the clock. It was always timed. There was no, like Password, you can say, asparagus. With Pyramid, it was always on the clock. You never had a chance to rest when you were given the clues to those people, and you had to suss out whether you were better giving or better taking, if they could answer the questions better than you, and then you'd switch the little screen around. Also, I think nowadays, I don't watch the show anymore, but I think the contestants always give, in the winner's circle, the contestants always give to the celebrity. In those days, the celebrity made the choice. And I don't remember any of the times that I was receiving clues. So I always gave them clues. And that, again, you're on the clock and you're playing for a lot of money for these people, and you want to do your best, and you don't want to. You also don't want to make yourself look like an idiot, which I did any number of times on that show, despite the fact that Dick Clark said I was one of the best players of the show. I made many mistakes, which I'm not proud of. But
that's kind of part of it, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's none of your business.
All right, fine. Shit, I'm not asking it.
But I won enough for the people. So that, to answer a long answer to a question, that's why it was tense. It was always on the clock. You never had a time to take a deep breath and say, I don't know what this, I think I should say. You didn't, that was it. You gotta come up with stuff. And I was pretty good at it. And I enjoyed playing it. It was a game. It was like a game that I enjoyed having played. To paraphrase Dorothy Parker, playing it was hard. Having played it was, when you walked out of the studio, was great.
Well, switching topics, I guess. What led to your work with Mel Brooks on the film Life Stinks? Was this a film that you auditioned for, and what was it like acting with and being directed by Mel Brooks? I
met Mel Brooks. Well, again, a long story. Pat Proft, who was involved with a lot of the comedies, Top Gun or Naked Gun or one of those things. He was a good Hollywood writer. Yeah. I auditioned for a show called Mr. Saturday Dinner. It was about cannibals. And Anthony,
Saturday Dinner? I like
Mr.
that.
Saturday Dinner. Anthony Perkins was directing. God bless him.
Oh, shit. When Anthony Perkins directing.
Yeah. But that didn't work out so good for me because Anthony Perkins, after I read for it, said, "So if I cast you, would you put yourself in my hands?" And I said foolishly, "Well, I hope if you cast me, we would be a collaborative effort. You know, you give me stuff, I'd give you stuff." Never heard from him again. But I saw Pat in a restaurant, and he came up. He says, "I'm the guy who wrote Mr. Saturday Dinner." I said, "Oh, great." He said, "We wanted you to do it, but Anthony Perkins wanted to hire another guy." I said, "Well, can't help that." And he said, "Look, we throw a Christmas party every year. Come to the Christmas party." So I came to the Christmas party. And in that Christmas party was a guy named Rudy DeLuca, who was Mel's partner and writer. If you look Rudy up, you'll see that he's associated with Mel a lot. Okay. So I went over to meet Rudy, thanks to Pat. And Rudy says, "You know, Mel's doing a movie, Life Stinks. Why don't you come in and meet with him?" I said, "No, I don't want to meet with Mel Brooks." I said, "Of course I'm going to meet with him. Yeah. I'll pay for my own cab fare." So I went over to Fox and met with him. It wasn't an audition. We just sat down. We talked. It's like Arachnophobia. I never auditioned for Frank Marshall for Arachnophobia. We just sat and we talked. And all of a sudden, you know, a few days later, they said, "You got the part." So that's how, thanks to Pat Proft and Rudy DeLuca and Mr. Mel, God, he's funny, Brooks, I got that part. Now, it was an interesting time for him and all of us because he wrote it, he directed it, he starred in it, and it was during one of the hottest heat waves in Los Angeles, which made it very unpleasant for everybody. But he was again really nice on the set, and was the first thing I did as a theatrical moment was in junior high school. I dressed up as an old man, and I did the 2,000-year-old man in a television. So that's the first. And I told him, I said, "You're the first guy. You got me going here with it." So working with him is, you just sort of stare at him, thinking about that career and what he's written and what he's done. I mean, I think about him all the time. We're still in touch. I mean, I email him occasionally. I'm afraid he'll think I'm a stalker, but I just love the guy. I think he's terrific. And Life Stinks was not one of the most successful movies, but I had a great time. And then he did a movie called, well, you mentioned it, The Vagrant.
Yeah, that's what we were going to ask you about, The Vagrant with Bill Paxton, because that's a strange.
I know, I read your mind.
All right, fine.
I think The Vagrant is a terrific movie. Again, didn't get a lot of. It was directed by I think Chris, somebody who was a special effects guy on Arachnophobia. Actually, I think that's correct. And Melvin, I met him during a voiceover session when I went in to loop some lines, but I'd already done Life Stinks with him, so we knew each other. And then I worked with Mel. He had a guest part, and I had a guest part on Mad About You. He had a recurring part, his uncle, somebody, and I was a teacher. So I met him again. And also an adjunct to that, and another wonderful bit of luck. We got to meet Anne Bancroft, who we just adore.
Yeah.
So that was. In fact, during the wrap party of Life Stinks, we went up. Joy and I went up to Anne and said, "We are such great fans." And she said, "How many times did you see The Graduate?" And Joy said, "Well, we've seen him a lot, but we're talking about Duet for One, which is a play she did with Max von Sydow in New York." What?
No, I said okay. I mean, you brought up Max von Sydow. I'm listening.
Well, it was a two-hander. She had multiple sclerosis. She was in a wheelchair, and he was her doctor. And we thought she was fabulous. And when we mentioned Duet for One, her ears really picked up, and we talked to her about that for a while. So, she is truly a movie star, but she is an actress. I mean, she is an actress. So that was Mel Brooks, and the association that I've had with him. I've seen him once in a while around town, and I remember we was eating at Fox with Anne, and I walked over and I sat down at the table, started eating a sandwich. And he looked. I said, "What?"
Well, you just got my food. Do you like Don Rickles and on Frank Sinatra kind of thing?
No. No, it was a great experience working with Mr. Brooks, and again, grateful, happy, memorable.
Now let's talk about 1990s and Arachnophobia real quick. So you mentioned that you landed this role after a sit down with director and producer Frank Marshall. Now, I know in previous interviews you haven't mentioned too much apprehension, but what were your initial thoughts when they did you read the script first? Did they sit down and tell you, hey, we're going to have, a bunch of live spiders as the main antagonist?
Oh yeah.
How did that go? And what was were you apprehensive at all?
No, I wasn't apprehensive. They had spider wranglers all over the place. The thing is that these were New Zealand spiders, which apparently was the look of the spider is what they wanted. It wasn't huge like the CGI spider at the end or the special effects spider at the end, but it was just the size that they wanted. And they cost, as I recall, $1,100 a piece to bring them over to the States and be in the movie. So to prevent a spider, say, getting loose, and all of a sudden you look at your arm and you say, "Oh, boom, $1,100 down the drain." So they didn't want squishy spiders anyplace. So they had a day where we all let the spiders, or they asked the spiders, crawl on us. Now, all spiders are venomous. They're all poisonous.
Yeah.
I'm a spider expert now. I mean, Daddy Longlegs has, pound for pound, the most venom of any spider, but he's so small that he kills his prey and not people. So anyway, they let the spiders walk all over us so that we would get used to it in case something untoward happened. I remember John Lithgow was just reveling in it, letting the spider go up and down his arm and in his hand and on his neck, So that's what the spiders were. And I in the movie, I have to reach into a box of cereal and pull out, and there's a dead spider, which I have to handle. I'm not that squeamish about it. I don't like them, but it wasn't a big deal to work with or handle the spiders. In the movie, in the original draft, I was supposed to have died with spider bites. That they rewrote that for various reasons.
Yeah, you just disappear in the last 20 minutes after when Julian Sands.
That's right. They didn't want me to die in my police car, a crash on the side of the road, and as the guys are going by to save Jeff Daniels' house, they didn't want a crashed vehicle on the side of the road because they thought that the guys would stop. I mean, they would stop, and they didn't want that. They just wanted the action of the movie to go on, which is fine. I still get text.
Did anyone did anyone ever crush any spiders? You've never answered that one. Did anyone kill any spiders on accident?
I don't think so. And if they did, they kept it hush-hush because the New Zealand Chamber of Commerce would have been really pissed.
Well, with the spiders, they obviously presented a lot of unique challenges. How did all of this affect the pacing or the shooting schedule or the production overall?
Yeah, especially because they had to build trails of lemon pledge furniture wax and stuff, right? And they had heat wires and all kinds of things to kind of.
Well, they had the thing that I remember was hair dryers. They put hair dryers on warm, and that's how they wrangled the spiders to go in a. So maybe they did the pledge thing. Maybe they had heat warm. But I remember hair dryers was the way they controlled the spiders. No problem with me. Like I said, I didn't have a lot to do with the spiders, and it certainly didn't affect the pace. I mean, I think they planned, they budgeted, spider problems in with the movie. And the movie was off. Frank Marshall's such a good director and a gentle director, and he runs such a good set that everything was just smooth as silk. And because of Frank, he gave me a small part in Congo because of Arachnophobia. So I love the guy. The guy, he's great.
Well, switching gears from Arachnophobia to Mannequin 2, what was your working relationship like with Stuart Raphael on the movie?
Great. Talking about rewriting, Cynthia Harris and I had scenes together, wonderful late Cynthia Harris. Mm-hmm. And we had one particular scene and he didn't like it. And he said to Cynthia and I, rewrite it. Give me a better scene. And we did. We sat down and we rewrote a scene where I go in and I'm pretending to, oh no, I'm not pretending. I think I'm trying to get on a dating service and she's videotaping me. And then Billy Ragsdale, her son, comes in and I don't want him to see me. So, I run out. But we rewrote that scene. And again, an example of rewriting stuff. But this was under the aegis and the blessing of Stuart Raphael. It was, it wasn't as successful, obviously, as Mannequin 1. But again, it was filmed in Philadelphia, which is my hometown, so I got to see my mom a few times, and my son and my wife came out to visit, and we were filming, or we lived down around historic Philadelphia, which is beautiful. And so it was a really nice experience. And again, the people in the movie, Billy and Christy, who starred in it, and Cynthia Harris, and Meshack Taylor. Remember Meshack? Mm-hmm. The guy from the first one. We all got along great. I mean, it was fun. It was terrific. Got to sample some Philly cheesesteak, which, believe it or not, growing up in Philadelphia, I never had one.
Why not?
So
You're lying. You've had a Philly cheesesteak growing up.
Well, now I have, but when I was growing up, I don't think I did. That's how I keep as thin as I am, just staying away from those cheesesteaks.
Now, when you tried it, did you like it, or were you like, shit's over?
I guess so. I don't, I guess so. There's a lot of hype and everything, including the Philly cheesesteak.
That'll make the Wikipedia page. On Mannequin 2, Stuart Pankin tried the Philly cheesesteak for the first time.
All right, so for 8 years, you acted in the role of Bob Charles on the news parody sketch comedy show, Not Necessarily the News.
I did?
Yes. Which was
I did. I remember.
Wrong person. No.
With the show being so well known today as an entry point for many of its prolific actors and writers just beginning their careers, what was it like first joining the cast, and what allowed you to maintain your role throughout the show's initial run?
What allowed me to do what?
What allowed you to maintain your role throughout the show's initial run?
Well, first of all, that's an interesting story. Again, you have time? I did a show called No Soap Radio with Michael Richards and Ron Richards. Michael Jacobs and Ron Richards. That lasted 5 episodes. And then I ran into Ron Richards, who was a writer on Nothing News, saying, a guy is leaving the show. You want to go in and audition for it? And this was cable. Nobody knew about cable in those days. It was like, cable, okay, sure. So I went in and I auditioned for it, and I got the job. And like I said, it was unbelievably low budget, and our first dressing room was indeed the men's room at a Shell station in Simi Valley or something. And the hours were horrible. And I said, I can't do this. I'm gonna quit. And then they made conditions a little better. At least they gave us a Winnebago where everybody, makeup, hair, costumes, actors, at least we had a place to go. The girls were, in the old days, dressing behind open doors, on rocks, shooing away snakes. I mean, it was low budget. It was guerrilla. Film.
Well, you talked a lot in previous interviews about like non-permitted filming and just kind of shooting on the fly.
Well, Nancy Severinsen was our Doc's daughter. Was as a matter of fact, going back just briefly, Doc gave me a trumpet, and I gave him a gig bag, and because of Nancy, I got Doc to do a small part in in Hump, the Richard III thing. I had to cut a lot of his stuff out, and I sent him a letter. But he was involved. He was starting me on playing the trumpet. So to see and to meet Doc Severinsen was a dream. Anyway, yeah, I did say that. It was what was the question?
Well, you jump back. I mean, why did you have to cut some of Doc's material?
Because there was a limited amount of time in the show, and Doc came in and he played a delivery man. He delivered a corned beef sandwich. Then he played a riff on his trumpet, and it was just not enough time to get the essential material in the show and keep that beauty shot, that extra wonderful moment. But to me, it doesn't matter. To meet Doc Severinsen and to eventually get a trumpet that was his was a dream. So go back to the other thing. I interrupted you.
No, I mean, it's your interview. We just like learning. Go ahead, Ray. All right. Well, then, sorry. It's what I messed up. It's my sense. I can't read. You ought to hear when the table reads. Anyway, is
there anybody out there that can ask me a decent question?
All right, hang on. I'm ready. Here we go. Read. All right. Now,
maybe he can.
So it's back to voice acting then, right? So it's well known that you were the voice, of course, of Earl Sinclair on the sitcom Dinosaurs for all 65 episodes that were produced during the show's 4-season run between 91 and 95. Now, that said, what were some of the unique challenges that came with the job of voice acting so frequently? Because you did this for quite an extended period of time.
Yeah. That's also a terrific story. I mean, it was everybody in California auditioned for that part, every character actor, and I'm thrilled to have gotten it. And when it started, it was a new project with the Henson Company with animatronic puppets. In the beginning, we sat around the table, I think for the first 2, maybe 3 shows, and we read the script as characters around the table.
All right.
And then we went off to do our voiceovers. We never worked together as a group. Everybody went in separately. Sally and Sam McMurray and Jessica Walter, the great Jessica Walter. So we did that separately. The challenges were sitting in a room for 6 to 8 hours, matching your words to the puppeteer's movements. So the puppeteers had animatronic puppets with eye movement, mouth movement, and a guy inside the puppet, Bill Beretta was inside mine, who was now a big producer at the Henson Company.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, it was frustrating, and it might have remained frustrating, but not as frustrating as an actor, to have to relegate your words to the movements of the mouth of the puppeteer. Now, my puppeteer was a guy named Mac Wilson. You're a little English guy, and you talk like this. Hi, honey, I'm home. Nice to be here. Where's Trent? That's. They didn't want that. They wanted Earl. So I had to do some mental gymnastics to make the words that came out of his mouth relevant for me. Now, toward the end of the show, or halfway through, Mac and Bill said my readings affected their movements, and their movements affected my readings. So we sort of came to a synergy about that. But that was the challenge to sit in that room and to make sure that the content of the piece, because it was so cleverly written, I was true to the content of the piece based on the mouth movements that I had to adhere to. So that was a big challenge.
Now, so there was some need then to interact with, for the voice cast to interact with the puppeteers. Like, did you have to talk with Bill a lot on a regular basis as far as?
No, absolutely not. Especially Bill and even Mac. We ran into each other. I used to go on the set because I loved the set. It was a beautiful set, forest set, and raised platform so that the puppeteers, Kevin Clash, could put his hand up through the floor and work Grandma, the great late Florence Stanley.
Yeah.
A lot of people died that I loved. It's too bad. But we didn't interact. We didn't sit down and say, well, you do this and I can do this, or I can do this and you do. We didn't do that. We just occasionally hung out together when I visited the set, and to see how it worked. And it was it was the most expensive half-hour television show to produce at the time, and maybe to this day, which is one of the reasons that it didn't go on for more than 3 years. To maintain those costumes and the animatronics and the electronics, Not to mention the toll it took on the suit actors. I mean, Bill Beretta lost inches being in that suit.
Yeah, that's what I heard. You tried the hat on like one time, and
that's enough.
Yeah.
That's enough. They had built-in seats in the tail, so the actors the suit actors could sit down. During the breaks, they took cold hair dryers, and hair dryer seems to be a theme in my life. But shoved them in the mouths and to cool the actors down. It was challenging. But the Henson people, I met Jim Henson once, but his son was really the one that ran the show, and we went on for 3 years. And it was when I get requests. Again, it seems like I'm patting myself, but when I get requests for autographs, it's mostly dinosaurs. I mean, pictures and Funko, Nunko boxes.
Yeah, that's
Funko Pops.
Reagan had to tell me about the Funko thing too. I was like, "What the hell are those things?"
Just little figures.
I mean, during the pandemic, and I'm not saying it's just because of me, I was getting 2 to 4 autograph requests to sign photographs, and how do you say it?
Funko Pops?
Funko, is that it? Funko?
No, Funko, I think. The
Funko,
F.
yes.
Funko.
Yeah.
But I was getting 2 to 4 a day during the pandemic when nobody had anything else to do. I still get them. I still get 2 to 4 a week, mostly dinosaurs, because the show. Well, when the show went on Disney Plus, it had a rebirth. It had a renaissance. So, and that's great. I'm glad that people keep it in their heads because I thought it was a wonderful show. Good for kids, good for parents, politically funny. It was a terrific show.
Did Bill ever send you hate mail for getting all the attention?
I think he's much too busy being a top producer at the Henson Company.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. Now,
about Funko, Nunko boxes.
Now, so you've talked about writing material, like when we talked about the Cinemax experiment. Now, music. Did you write and record did you record with the other voice actors for the Big Songs album, for the Dinosaurs Big Songs album? What was that like? Did you work alongside Kevin Clash and Sally and them doing that?
I worked alongside Kevin for Dinosaurs Big Stories. We sat across the table from each other with a microphone, and he was the baby, and I was Earl, and we introduced the Dinosaurs fairy tales for kids. So we did that. As far as the music, I remember going to the Capitol Records studio, that big famous round one in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And we recorded a couple of songs for the Dinosaurs album there, which was kind of cool. I mean, to record in the Capitol Studios was actually kind of cool. And I remember when I was working in Pennsylvania, and Ray Colcord, who was the music coordinator, came to Pennsylvania. And I recorded Grandma's Come and You Can Smell this one. So I recorded that there. And then the song that I wrote, actually, I'm the Baby, with Ray. Ray did the arrangement. I can't remember where I did that, where I filmed that. But maybe at his studio. But I'm the Baby, Gotta Love Me, and He's a Lizard and I Love Him were the 2 songs that I wrote that got on the Dinosaurs Big Songs album. I got a bunch more, which never got on the album, but at least they're in my heart.
How long did you work on that? Did you all work on that project for a while?
Which one? The Big Songs?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. I think it was all, Ray had a nice studio in the Valley, and we went up and he did his stuff, and then I came up and did my stuff. And Michael Jacobs was there, giving notes. And no, it was pretty quick.
Have you maintained contact with Michael Jacobs at all?
Well, when the show first ended, yeah, we played golf together a lot. We had lunch together, and he produced Girl Meets World.
Yeah, you did a few episodes of that.
I did one episode of that. He brought me into that. The bastard made me audition, which I'll never forgive him.
He made you audition for. How was the audition? Did you yell at him?
No, I got the parts of the audition. It must have been fine. But that's the last time I really had any time with Michael. He's in Florida now. Everybody keeps saying to me, or they used to say, "Why don't you do Dinosaurs again? Why don't you do Dinosaurs?" And there was a real upswell to do it again. And I wrote to him. I said, "Michael, any chance?" And he said, "No, that's done."
I wonder how they would approach a show in today's world, being where there's been so many technological changes and stuff, doing a budgetary thing.
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know if it would be easier, more expensive. The technology would have improved. I have no idea. You don't see. I mean, look, you don't see a lot of animatronic life-size puppets, in television or movies anymore. I mean, the Henson Company sort of initiated that stuff with their movies, and then they have the what are the Creature Shop? They had the Creature Shop, and they built all these puppets. And I don't know. It's an interesting question. If they did it again, if it would be CGI, like they did with Yoda. First he was real, now he's CGI, and it's hard to tell the difference sometimes. That's an interesting question. Maybe here. Why don't you start a big upsurge and get Dinosaurs back CGI, which would be a lot cheaper, and make sure that I get to do the father again. Okay.
Look, I'm broke. Don't put me.
We're taking notes.
I'll send you a box of candy.
All right, you send me a box of candies. I'm gonna send you a Funko Pop, and it's on. No, like Funko Pop. It sounds like something you fucking eat. Anyway, but like, all right. So your role is Gordon. I could ask you about voice acting forever too, and I'm not going to because I know we're on time. But because I've done a lot of audio recording, and I know when you're sitting.
Well, just briefly here, the big difference is with Dinosaurs, you went in and you did the voiceover afterwards. After you see the live action. In cartoons, you do the thing and you read the script, and then they animate to your voice. So that's the big difference in that kind of stuff.
All right. Is it? So I'm just wondering. It's like, is it tedious? Was it really tedious when you're sitting there in the box for hours? Was it just you and one producer, one director, kind of feeding you?
Right. Well, it was in the beginning. It took us 2 days, 2 8-hour days to do the pilot, because there were a lot of cooks in that pot, and for better or for worse, and then mistakes were made, and then mistakes were corrected. And it was about 5 to 6 or 7 hours to do each episode. We did the episode, we broke for lunch, which was very pleasant. Then we came back and finished it. But I sometimes say it's a job that I love having and was difficult to do. But in the end, it's all worth it.
Now, your role as Gordon Zielinski in Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. It required a great deal. And that's where I got my introduction with you, actually. So I'm 5 years old. I'm at daycare. They're playing that shit all day. And I was like, so I called my mom. I said, Mom, Stuart Pankin, I got to talk to him now. It's on. So anyway, this one's from her. No, but your role as Gordon Zielinski in Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves required a great deal of green screen and special effects development throughout production. Now, as an actor, what was it like working with the technology available at that time? I know that some of it was like real life stuff when you were in the cereal bowl and whatnot, but being the technology's changed so much into CGI now, how did the production crew have you all work as actors to be able to accomplish some of these things in special effects?
Well, you're right. In it was the older days, and it was green screen or blue screen, whatever we did. And there were some oversized props, like you say, the cereal bowl, and the speaker that I climbed up at the end were all real, and some furniture. But a lot of it was green screen. And I've done some green screen on not necessarily the news. You just, you look where they tell you to look. Oh, there's a spider hat, I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, nowadays they have these LED monitors that make it look like you're anywhere. With green screen in those days was the way to go, and it was no problem for any of us. We just sort of jumped in and look where we were told to look and acted with each other. It was basically 4 of us for a month, and it was again great. It was great.
Yeah, and a very different role for you as well, in the sense that you're playing a parent and you're playing someone who's a little more short-tempered and agitated rather than smug and, kind of the charisma's there, but it's a different development. How was that?
Oh, come on, man. The charisma is always there. For God's sake. I'm dripping. In fact, this chair is wet with charisma.
Can I follow up with that on the air? Is it possible?
Yes, you can. You can.
All right.
No, I mean, yes, he was a parent. I guess it was one of my more adult roles and less officious than some of the roles that I get cast in. Like a Bob Charles role is more of an officious role.
Yeah.
It was, it was fun to be a parent, to play with Rick and the girls, and it was well. Allison Mack was my daughter. Mila Kunis actually did a small part in that thing, who's now a huge star.
Yeah.
So I like to think that I gave her her start.
All right. Mila Kunis, you hear that?
That would be a lot.
She can just send
Don't
royalty
tell her.
payments over. I won't say anything.
She also did a couple of parts on Nick Frino. Before she became famous.
Oh, I'm actually about to ask. I'm about to ask about that in a minute, but I do have a question for you first. So, now you're no stranger to working with Disney, and a lot of the listeners who grew up in the 90s and 2000s will recognize you from your role as Commander Plank in the Xenon Girl of the 21st Century role. Now, what was it like working through production on these?
Well, the Xenon series, the movie, the three of them that I did, were kind of cool. One, because we get to film in different places. We filmed the first one in Vancouver. I don't know if I've ever been. Yes, I had. I had been in Vancouver. But the second one, we filmed in New Zealand, which was really nifty. And the third one, we filmed in South Africa, which was a horrible trip, but kind of nifty to be there.
Why was it a horrible trip?
Oh, it was a horrible trip. It's the longest trip from California to Cape Town that you can take in the world. You know, it's just the longest route you can take, no matter if you go west or east. And we went east. And it was brutal. I've never had such jet lag. Anyway, but you get over that. And it was great working. Holly Folger was my wife in the three movies. I still keep in touch with her. She's great. Worked with John Getz, terrific actor. And Raven was in it, and Kristen, whatever her name is. I blocked it out. She was young.
Go ahead, Ray. Sorry.
Huh? Oh.
You were going to ask about Nick Frino, I believe.
Yeah, so with...
You're jumping back from there. I haven't even finished with...
Go ahead. I'm sorry. All right. It's your go. Continue.
Well, all I'm saying is that doing the Xenon movies with three nice directors, and the three of them two of them were buyouts, as we say in the trade. I mean, you get a salary and then you don't get anything else. The third one, you did get some residuals because they changed the contract. So that was a little more attractive to an actor. But when an actor I auditioned for it. When an actor, but when there are sequels involved, and they say, "Come and be the sequel." I mean, that's honey. That's icing.
You didn't audition for the sequels either. Do you have to audition for those, or just contracted?
No. I mean, they just wanted me to play Commander Plank, and I did. As a matter of fact, Stuart Krieger, who wrote all three of them, and his wife and my wife and me, we become very good friends. And she always calls me Mr. Plank. And as a matter of fact, I did a little part in a movie for her son, Gus, who was a very talented writer. And my character was Dr. Plank. So it's followed me through the Krieger universe.
All right. What were the reason for the exotic filming locations varying with each movie? Do you know?
Money.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
They wanted to get they tried to the last one. They tried to. They contacted the film department in Bangladesh. I'm really glad that didn't work out. Yeah, so we ended up in South Africa. Yeah, they were trying to do it as cheaply as they can.
Makes sense. I mean, yeah, be nice about it.
No. It's look. Actors deserve to be paid. Producers deserve to save as much money as they can. That's the nature of the business. I don't object to that at all.
Yeah. Well, now it's finally time for the Nick Frino question. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go. I have another interview at 3:30. No, I don't.
Sorry, we can go.
Well, so with the Nick Frino licensed teacher, so how does your work on that show come into play when speaking about your time working on That's So Raven, being that the character is so similar?
They are similar. I mean, again, it's one of my officious guys. Mm-hmm. I'm to be honest with you, I'm just glad when I get a chance to do something different. I mean, just to digress, I just did a movie for a friend when I had a 20-minute improvisational monologue as a Jewish rabbi.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if it'll ever see the light of day, but I had a great time. They had a great time. And you're right. I do a lot of these officious characters. And I also on stage do a lot of meek guys too, which nobody will see. But as far as the Raven character, which I don't remember that much of, and Professor Fust, I don't know if they overlapped or if they came close together, but that's what they wanted me to do. And you take the job and you do the job, that they ask you to do, and I'm happy to do it. I mean, if I'm going to be an officious, authoritative guy, I want to be the best officious, authoritative guy I can be.
Let's rewind to 1989. You appeared in the film Second Sight, directed by Joel Zwick. So, at the time of production, the Writers Guild of America was in the middle of a strike, which reportedly caused problems with both the script and cast. So, could you elaborate on what difficulties the strike presented to the film and how they are ultimately resolved?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There was a writer's strike, and the guy who wrote the original Second Sight, Dead Poet Society, I don't know, you have to look him up. He was the guy who wrote the script. It was a wonderful script,
All right.
as written. Now, I won't mention names, but there was people didn't like some of the things in that script. And they spent evenings rewriting stuff to make it, in their opinion, better. In my opinion, it wasn't better. And there was a lot of problems with the script because of that. If they'd stuck to the original script, I think it would have been swell. But the writer's strike meant that there were a lot of rewriting. It gave the people in charge liberty to do a lot of rewriting. And I don't remember if the next morning when you showed up for work, you got a new pages. That never bothered. But there was a lack of consistency in it, and it, as I recall, it ends with a fantasy shot with a frog. I mean, it was a strange movie. I'm happy to have gotten to work with Bess Armstrong, who we were friends. We maintained friendships. John Larroquette, who I played gin rummy with him every day, and he actually years later sent me $20. He says, "I think I owe you $20." It's the truth. He did that. Bronson was under a lot of stress,
Yeah.
and Joel, who I don't think I'd worked with before, he had a lot of pressure and tension, not having a writer to go to confirm his opinions about the script. Yeah, so there was some not tensions on the set, but there was tensions during the shoot.
No, we've got a couple more questions. I do want to jump off because I missed this one somewhere in point. Now, Love at Stake, because you talk about working with Danny Breen and Ann Bloom in various situations. Now, you would work with Moffat developed this one, right? And Hoyt Caston directed it. Is that correct?
Yes, and I think Ron Richards, again from Not the News, wrote it or co-wrote it.
What was it like directing or being directed by Hoyt Caston for this? And I mean, you all look like you had a lot of fun with this movie more than anything.
It was certainly fun. Danny and Annie and I being together, for 5 weeks in Dallas was a tremendous amount. Hoyt had he was under so much pressure to do it. He was tired all the time. God bless him, and he got the job done. Julie Corman produced it, and it was fine working with him. And again, there were some rewrites. Hoyt was my champion when it came to rewriting, and was very complimentary about my rewriting, and he allowed me to do it. And so I felt that if I could help him in any way possible, because he had a lot. It's a big movie. I mean, lots of action stuff and special effects. And he did a great job. And the movie is still, on people's minds today. Peter, of course, grew up to be a big producer. And again, never calls me, never writes, never telephones. And it's still a kind of a favorite kids movie for a lot of kids.
Yeah, it's the part in the beginning when you did they have to dig a hole out for you to go down into that water?
You fell
like
in
that?
the water multiple times. What was that like?
Well, I fell in the water. I think I fell in once. There was in the Dirt Bike Kid. I jumped. I walked into the water, and then I improvised this. There's a stick coming at me. It's moving. That stick is moving. But in what's in the
Love at Stake.
Love, thank you, God. Yes, that's another interesting story. They dig a hole, they filled it with water, and I was worried all day that I was going to, because it was winter, I was going to jump into this freezing pond of water. And the scene came, and I ran toward the thing, and then all of a sudden, magically, it opens, turns the water, and I jump in, and it's warm, it's hot. I had to act that it was cold. I expected it to be cold, but God bless those crew people. They heated it up, and it was delightful.
Take one, you jump in there, you're like, this shit ain't so bad. Take two. No. So now you've worked more recently with director Jeremy Dillon Lanny on several short films in your career, but your most significant work together has been on his first feature-length film recently, Deep in the Forest. How was your experience working with Jeremy on a feature?
Well, again, you say we worked on a bunch of short films with Jeremy, so we got to know each other. Working on the feature was just a bigger version of working with him on the short film. Peter Jason, who is my dear friend, was one of the stars, and I got PJ Oakland. There was a lot of, wonderful actors, and we got to know each other because we were in basically one location, one house, for the entire shoot, which I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 weeks. So, and they were wonderful actors, and it was really fun. Jeremy, again, ran a very loose, happy set, and he got the shots that he needed, and he did it himself. He produced it. He wrote it. He directed it. Again, he had a lot on his plate, and he handled it fine. So working with him on a feature was not much different than working with him on the short films, only longer.
In recent years, you've continued to act in various projects and have completed several interviews discussing your life and different points of focus throughout your career. Now, through all of it, you have always mentioned your wife and fellow actress, Joy, and we have mentioned Joy throughout the interview quite a bit. Now, how has your lifelong relationship together factored into the success you've had as an actor?
Well, I mean, we've been married, 48 going on 49 years, so and we worked in plays together for years in Pennsylvania, and we just try to support each other. I mean, if I'm doing something that's good, she'll tell me. If I'm doing something that's bad, she'll tell me, and hopefully it goes the other way. I mean, we met at Columbia. We were in the master's program, and we fell in love and got married, and it's. What do you say about a relationship that, that professionally and personally has spanned, 48 years? Of course, there's a again, using my favorite word, synergy. There's a reciprocity. There's a bond between us that I don't share with anybody else. So, and I feel sorry for people that aren't married to Joy. That's the way that goes.
I love that. That's great. That's great. Now, I do want to ask before we go. Now, because in this is a bit off script a bit, but in some interviews you would talk prior to Betty White's passing how you and Joy and Betty had gone to like nursing homes and you would recreate like Golden Girls scripts and stuff. Do you do a lot of interesting things like that together?
Well, for years we didn't go with Betty. Betty would be mobbed if she, we were friends for years. We played what we call pico poker, or dime poker, which Betty White loved. I mean, she just loved it. But she didn't go to the rest home. My friend Henry Pollack, who was again friends with Betty, was in the nursing home, and he wanted to do something. So he wanted to start a theater group with the older folks there, and he couldn't do it alone because he was under the weather. He was sick, and so he asked me and Joy to come in, and we did. And then we brought in our friends Eileen Graff, who you might have heard of because she's famous, and Ben Lanzarone, who's a brilliant musician, and we read scripts. With these older people. We started out with long plays, which you realize, weren't that successful because, not that they couldn't do it, it's just that, it's when you're not professional actors, you need a little bit of professionalism and skill to do it. So we graduated to Golden Girls, and since I knew Betty, I asked if we could get some scripts. So we got some Golden Girls scripts, and we did those for a while with our friends at the assisted living home. And that was great. They loved that. And then we graduated into something called 5-minute mysteries, which are extant, literally 5-minute mysteries. Those kinds of things. Right. And Ben wrote interstitial music for that, and I wrote some parody commercials, and he put music to that. So we sang and we did these mysteries, and that turned out to be the things that the guys liked the best. And we had a terrific time. I mean, really, I mean, they're just some wonderful people. After it stopped because of the pandemic, and unfortunately it didn't start again. I don't even know how many of our old gang are around. But if there was any way to do it again, we would try. We've pursued it a little bit, but sometimes the staff at the assisted living home, sometimes they're enthusiastic, sometimes they're not. So we don't want to push it. But doing those things with Joy and Ben and Eileen, and with our friends in the assisted living place, some old, wonderful, funny, dirty people, it was a highlight. It kept us going for years. We did it for years.
Now, before we let you go, and anything you're currently working on, or anything you'd like to say that's going on in the world today? No,
I'm not doing that. Well, that movie that I did it's called Bus Stop, when I played the Jewish rabbi. That's coming out, I guess. There's a movie which hasn't come. It's been in a lot of festivals. It's a biographical movie of Jerry Soroka and Mariette Hartley.
All right.
They wrote a movie. I did a little part of that. It's been around the festivals and gotten really. I don't know if that's going to come out or not. But what I do is I go up and I like to do readings for screenplays or plays for friends. That's fun to do. And a guy named Ben Solenberger, I've done a number of short films with him. He's always working on projects, and hopefully I'll be doing that. He's a loyal, good friend, and I appreciate his support. But that's it. You know, I sit around and I play poker with the guys and watch a lot of junk television and a lot of good British television, and talk to nice people like you.
Have you ever seen The Young Ones from British television from the 80s?
No.
All right. I'll send you just a link. It's like 3 or 4 seasons from the 80s. I think you might get a kick.
Why are you laughing?
When I was younger, once you watch it, you're gonna wonder why I was watching it at that age.
It's an early Rick Mayall project. It's kind of interesting, but it's got a very it's like 4 of them. They're kind of like a character troupe. They do a lot of different improv stuff, but The Young Ones was something that was on BBC for like 2 years. I'll send you a link. You probably find it interesting, I would think.
Okay, sure, thanks.
All right, now. All right, Stuart, that is all we have. Thank you for making it.
I'm not ready to go. I got a lot more answers.
All right, well, let's do this. You want it? Pee break, get the check in.
No. I actually don't have to pee. I have a bucket right here. I'm good to go.
Reagan, can I get a bucket next time? Turn around, I need a bucket. All right, here we go.
There is no bucket.
And
that's the name of your autobiography. Turn around, I need a bucket.
I love it. That's great. For 45 years, that shit comes out. Forward. Now, we very much appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure, guys. It's a real pleasure.
Yeah, and it's like I said, first time I've been able to interview without pants, so it's great to be able to do it with you as well. Everybody sends Dinosaurs stuff for you to sign. I'm going to send some underwear.
I'll sign them. I'll sign them.
They'll be clean though. They go on the wall. You know, I put them up there with all the other ones. Anyway, thank you so much for taking the time. We very much appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
All right,
Thank you. Real treat. Real pleasure. Thank you.
And there you have it, wall crawlers. None other than Stuart Pankin himself here on The Ghost of Hollywood. Stay tuned. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and we'll be back shortly after these messages.
Have you ever wondered what happened behind the scenes on your favorite films or television shows? Want the inside scoops from the actors, directors, and cinematographers who worked on them?
Then check out The Ghost of Hollywood for interviews with past, present, and future filmmakers from fan-favorite movies and TV shows such as Hellraiser, Die Hard, and The Offer.
Listen in as host Poxy Leonard and Miss Ragan interview actress and producer Jamie Brewer, well known for her role as Addie Langdon in the FX original series American Horror Story.
More interested in how movies get made? Check out our interview with casting director Jackie Birch, whose work with John Hughes on 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club, and Weird Science catapulted stars such as Judd Nelson to international fame.
The Ghost of Hollywood takes you on set as we discuss the best of cult classic cinema, nostalgic television shows, and blockbuster hits with the actors, directors, and screenwriters who worked on them.
Catch the latest episode of The Ghost of Hollywood wherever you get your podcast.
And while you're at it, don't forget to visit our website and sign up for our monthly newsletter for all the latest updates and episodes at theghostofhollywood.com.
Welcome back to the Ghost of Hollywood. I'm Poxy Leonard here with Miss Ragan, and we've just finished speaking with none other than Stuart Pankin himself about his lifelong acting career on the stage and screen.
We'd like to thank Stuart for joining us and making time to tell us his incredible story. You know, I'm also glad I was able to shed light on the Funko Pop for him.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to shed that on for me too, because, you know, I didn't know what the hell they were either, so I appreciate you clearing that up, Ray. And looking them up from here, though, on the computer, I'm curious how I can have a Poxy Funko Pop made to add to my catalog.
Okay, first, who the hell would want a Funko Pop of you? And second, what is this catalog you're talking about?
Hang on, I gotta turn my phone off. I'm gonna get in trouble with the producers again. I told me not to get on it anymore.
Your phone's really not on silent right now.
Dude, well, now it is. Okay, I'm sorry. And anyway, I made up the catalog thing. That's not true. I don't have one yet. But it's, you know, Evil Knievel have one maybe one day. There'll be like a Poxy toy of me on a motorcycle, and it'll be a big... I'm getting out there. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, whatever. Now, the Ghost of Hollywood finally has released some merch, so if you'd like to, check it out on our website at theghostofhollywood.com.
Oh, yeah. Nice pitch. I like how we worked that in there. And I did see this in the liners the other day at the meeting, and I like how they also only had you do the photo shoot promo for the new items, Reagan. Really like that.
What can I say, Poxy? When you've got it, you've got it.
Ah, Dollar Store Elizabeth Taylor over here, everybody.
Yeah, fight words, huh?
I'm not scared to die, Reagan.
You sure?
Nah. Put that down, Reagan.
Fine, but only because you asked oh so nicely.
Oh, well, thank you. All right, everybody. That wraps it up for this episode. Thanks again to Stuart for joining us on the show and for teaching me how to interview like a true badass.
Put your pants on, Poxy.
As I was saying, well, no, I won't. And also, thanks to the team here at the Ghost of Hollywood for all their hard work. Chris has been, like, you know, speaking of the crew, Chris has been laying all these hard deals and shit. I'm gonna be in Beverly Hills in no time where he's going.
You ever get your board back from Jesse?
Oh, speaking on Jesse then, are we? All right, now, I need to go back and visit soon, that's true. And to elaborate for our listeners, Jesse Garcia, who works to put together sounds and noise and shit for Ghost of Hollywood, recently circuit bent my keyboard so that we could make some crazy new sounds to put behind Ray and I while we jabber away here at the microphones.
And now you need to go back to Jesse's and pick it up.
Yes, I do. He promptly kicked me out by going, Zach, I'll finish this after you go home. I don't think he liked the work I was doing. I was being sloppy. But anyway, I'm on the way, Jesse. Also, another side note, I went to dinner with our mastering engineer, Grady Sizemore, the other night while my friend Andy was in town, and Grady was telling me all these wild issues he'd had with vertigo.
Explain.
All right, well, so it's some crystal-like thing grew in his ear or something that kept causing him, like, to have vertigo. And because of this, he thought I was actually poisoning him. But then he finally went to the doctor, and they said I wasn't poisoning him. And then they made him do, like, all this weird head movement shit to displace the crystal and stop the vertigo.
Well, did it stop?
Well, he said it stopped. And I ate an entire plate of tachos at the bar while he told me this story.
Yes, Dinner of Champions.
Yeah. You tell that to the toilet. Anyway, so, for sure. I can't believe I just said that on the air. Why? Yeah. All right, anyway, that's all I've got.
All right, everybody. For more information, visit theghostofhollywood.com. I'm Miss Reagan here with Poxy Leonard, and we'll be back next month with a brand new episode.
That's right. Until next time, everybody.
Good morning and good night.
You have been listening to another episode of The Ghost of Hollywood. The Ghost of Hollywood is directed by Zach Flannery. The show is authored by Chris Klon and Zach Flannery. Composition samples and score by Jesse Garcia in Pineapple Nightmare. Production management by Mary Flannery at the Electric Garden Company. And mastering by Grady Sizemore and Microphonic Meltdown in Portland, Oregon. For more information on The Ghost of Hollywood, please visit theghostofhollywood.com.